Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the night, everybody's favorite night. It's ESO grading night. Whoop whoop. We have played 6 weeks of ESO. I thought it was less than that, but man, 6 weeks of ESO that we have played, and we are now here to grade it. And we have our different categories, and we're just going to go through it. There are 8 of us tonight because we had to split into 2 groups. So we have the superior group on the left, the MMO 101.
What?
And then we have the secondary group on the right, the 201.
And the 101 is the superior group, obviously.
Yeah, but I just want to say the 201 group, they're really nice people.
They are. They're
Yeah.
super nice.
They have good personalities.
They'd
What
probably,
content did y'all do?
they'd probably read quest text for you.
Which tells you that they know a lot.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, let's see how the night shakes out before we start making judgments about who's who and what's what here. Because I think that our opinions will spell the game, the name of the game for us all here.
Yes. Yes. So, no, Sarah, it's not a competition. We're all on the same team, mostly.
It's a competition.
I mean, technically for it to be a competition, both sides need an equal chance of winning.
That's why Crypt played for both teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
We have
you
a-
guys to join us
yeah.
at some point, all right?
Crypt was like, those 101 guys, I'm not having any fun. I'm coming over. Help you guys out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
I don't know. I'll go back and check the tape. We'll see.
More or less. I mean, that's what we got from it.
Yeah. Switch hitters, right? Yep.
All right, well, I'm going to go around, do quick intros, and then we are going to get into this thing because we got to get in and out here in 2 hours-ish, and it's going to be difficult as it is. So, first of all, we have Mr. Nathan Napalm. He is the full-time streamer. Mr. Cringe himself. How we doing, Nathan?
Doing good.
We have the lore master, Therek. He writes the lore. He posts it on YouTube. People get cranky. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Cranky and happy in equal measure. So I take what I can get. But yeah, excited. Looking forward to tonight.
Desryn is first time on a grading session, and he's also back in town from vacation. So we're super excited to have him. How's it going, Desryn?
Hey, I literally just got home and here I am. So I'll eat sometime tomorrow, I think.
We have Sparoh. This game, she actually kind of mains, right? That's correct. You play this game.
Yeah,
a lot.
I play it on and often.
Yeah.
Yeah, on and off.
So
Mhm.
she's our one of our resident expert ESO players. I was going to say our expert, but I forget. Then I remembered Stans is also an expert. So
He's an expert. I am not an expert.
Is that tea you're drinking there, Stans? What's going on?
Yeah, always.
I think
Wrong
they
with
call
some
it,
tea.
I think they call it
respect it.
Irish tea or something like that. Isn't that what it is?
we
No,
have
it's just herbal tea.
we have Cryptfox the undefeated. He tried to quit Dead by Daylight for like a whole 3 days, but it did not take. And
It was rough, dude. It was so hard.
We have Stans and Fire. He probably has some kind of complex math equation and or calculus for his grading tonight. So we're really excited to see that. How's it going, Stans?
Oh, it's good. It's going well. We're doing a game that I have cough thousands cough hours into that I don't like to look up my playing time.
And we have Tetsu the Charisma Suave. We have him on here because we needed a little lift in the prettiness of the stream.
I'll take
Wow.
it. Sure.
Wow.
I'll take it.
Hey, Tetsu, when's your next album coming out?
All right, so we are doing a little ESO grading tonight. So super excited about that. We are going to go left to right on your Twitch stream, and we're going to start with Nathan. So, Mr. Nathan Napalm, our first category. I feel like I'm on Jeopardy. Our first category. Our
I know,
first
I'm
category.
getting nervous.
What are MMOs I don't like? For 100, Alex, please.
Wait, what did we win?
You get to come back next week.
Hey.
Our first category is grouping. What did you think about the grouping, Nathan?
You know, when we first started, I thought it was awesome. I was like, dude, this is really fun. But then as it continued, I got to admit that like it just didn't continue a pace of challenge. I know there is challenging content in the game, but like for the level up content, it got kind of boring. It was just kind of like stabby stab all the things. So you got the aggro heal when you're sometimes hardly ever, but sometimes heal, and it was okay. It was just kind of like you know. It was really pretty, but as far as the actual grouping up and the content in a group, besides the PvP, by the way, which I thought was super good, like group content. The dungeons and all that, I didn't get into, and I gotta say too, I felt like the class dependency, because it was so easy, just felt really weak. Like I felt like most classes could have probably tanked that content. It's obvious though that all the content isn't like that, but for the leveling up experience, I think it could have done some more difficulty. So I gave it a C-.
All right, C- for Nathan. Mr. Therek.
Well, I mean, so my biggest problem with the grouping in this game is that it's one of those dungeon run games where you don't talk to anybody. I mean, other than what we get to do and what we're doing, the experience we're having is a little different because we all are, playing as a group that we know each other. We are socializing the whole time. But I did some grinding, and it's so hard to initiate any kind of conversation. And the whole point of grouping an MMO for me is about the social aspect of it. I find that it's lacking in this game. So the grouping is somewhat superficial. It's just to make sure you have the firepower to get through the content. Yeah, so and sort of that cookie cutter approach with other MMOs that are out there right now. I like some of the synergies. I will mention the combat synergies were fun when we had them go off. It's kind of neat to use an ability that is you're using because somebody else used one of theirs. That's cool. But I found the grouping to be, I don't know, superficial. Maybe is the best way of putting it. So what did I give it? I gave it a C.
All right, Mr. Desryn.
I'm really glad you guys already pointed out that the grouping feels a little superficial in the sense of how we were doing it intentionally made up for it a bit. But if you were just to play the game like a normal person, you would just get dragged through all these dungeons and it wouldn't feel good. Having said that, the group content I think was excellent. I know the challenge for doing early stuff was lacking. And I feel like that's going to happen in any MMO, even if you do have level scaling. Fortunately, we were able to find somewhat semi-difficult stuff, which made up for it. And the encounters and all that stuff for the grouping experience was, I would say, pretty excellent. And lastly, as was touched on, the lack of like individual class identity really hurt the grouping for me, I think, because instead of having classes, you just kind of have this archetype. And it made grouping feel like each individual didn't really matter that much. Like one person is just another person is another person. Again, lending to the problem of superficial grouping. And there's also no real like duo or trio content. That's a huge thing for me. And that just wasn't really there. So I still gave it a B though, because I consider it above average for the landscape that we see.
The current MMO landscape is poor.
I'm just
Relatively
using the
speaking.
grading system, as you would
On the
normally use
Des grades on the scale.
the bell curve.
On the curve,
maybe.
yeah, on the curve, yeah. Absolutely. Sparoh.
So it lost points for me being the small group size. 4 only is a no-no for me. I love the dungeons. They do get more difficult, especially when you get to veterans and things. But the dungeon finder is glitchy, so it lost some more points there for me. There's not enough overland group content. The dungeons are fantastic. They do scale up. They do get harder. But overland, it's all solo. Unless I think there's one zone that used to be groupable. Stans, do you know? Is it still
Craglorn.
Craglorn?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's about it. So for me, I'm giving it a C+.
Right, Cryptfox.
I basically had the same thoughts on it as Therek. Like you see this type of grouping in all the theme park MMOs. Get together, do a dungeon, whatever. Grouping is optional. And that's my biggest takeaway is that even when I did do dungeons on my own, I even tried to do like the Final Fantasy 14 thing, like tell, hey, I'm new. I'm gonna check out the story as we move through. And I basically got a peace sign saying, all right, good luck, have fun. And they just rushed ahead, killed everything, killed the boss, and then left the dungeon. So uh
like Final Fantasy 14.
No, I think that there's a little bit more interaction in Final Fantasy 14. I have a lot of years playing that game, and I can say that.
No, I agree there. It was a joke.
14 doesn't allow that anymore either. The designers of the game changed the mechanics, so you can't do that to people anymore. You have to wait for them. If they're watching it, you gotta wait.
Yeah. So overall, I gave grouping and rating a D.
Low grade so far. Stands in the fire.
So, content in ESO largely ranges from solo stuff, which is pretty much most of your overland things. Like Sparoh and other people pointed out, if it's general overland content, that is story content. That is go through and do story. To some group overland content, and that's where you start getting into Craglorn, some of the public dungeons, dolmens, in the expansions, the whatever they are in Blackreach and in Somerset, and all the expansions have their own version of group events in them and world bosses. Then you get into regular dungeons, which is what we were doing. All we did in this stream is basically learning content. We were playing the stuff that is teaching you the mechanics you're going to see when you start doing harder stuff. I know that like Des, Sparoh, and I have all done past this stuff. We've done veteran content. I've run trials. I've done veteran trials. So I'm grading on a larger slice of the game, and just having seen more of it, I'm going to give it a B because I know the challenge and the group dependency that exists as you get past the initial stuff, which is literally, let's start teaching you mechanics dungeon by dungeon to start layering things onto each other and have you learn as you go. That's kind of all we did because that's what you do before vet and DLC's content.
Tetsu.
All right. I thought it was pretty decent. Again, it's par for the course in the current MMO landscape. So I try to compare it to other ones that we've played, older ones and whatnot. And so I will say I enjoy that it's accessible, right? It's easy to group together. I never feel like I was stuck. I'm never going to play with this other person again. But it does, like everyone else said, it suffers from the modern tropes of like you'll never see them again. Not that you can't, but you won't because you don't care. And the mechanics in the dungeon were pretty decent. They weren't 14. To me, it almost felt like a lesser 14 because both are modern MMOs. They both came out around the same time. So I gave this a C because it's average. I was thinking about maybe C. I'm gonna say C minus just because it could have been better compared to another of its peers. So I'll go with a C minus.
Nice. Well, y'all went easy. Gets an F.
Oh boy.
F.
Well, F from Draq.
Explain
Dude,
yourself,
no,
Draq.
no.
The
Someone else is
worst.
wrong.
The worst. Okay, first of all, Sparoh hit it on the head. 4-person grouping, and I will say it again. I will say it till I die. It's a co-op. Co-op. Not an MMO. Group size, at least the minimum, the bare minimum has to be 5, preferably 6. It's awful. I hate 4-person grouping. It's awful. The dungeons combined with being easy, I died one time, and I died because I fell off a tree. That was my death, right? We didn't die to a boss. We barely were hurt by bosses. I was standing in stuff. I wasn't moving. I was doing all the worst of the wizard things that I do, and it was never even in question whether I would die. And as Stan said, right, they're supposed to be teaching you the mechanics, but I'm never going to learn the mechanics if it doesn't cost me, right?
Yeah,
and so
that's a great point.
I
Exactly.
don't like that type of gameplay. I don't like when I roll my face on the keyboard and I win. It's awful. That, and then the third thing that I really hate is that there's no big boss with a great reward at the end. All that loot is scalable. It's all the same loot. So if I run it again, I just get, and I ding, then I just get the same gear. It's just one level higher. Like, ugh. That's horrible for me, and I just like it. It removes any incentive I have to do the dungeons, and I love dungeons. I probably love running dungeons. Out of this group, probably the most. Like I would just run dungeons all the time to level. So for me, it's an F. It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things you said there. I think Draq that fit into a few different categories down the course of our show here, but like the scaling is huge. It's a huge problem.
Draq was more passionate about the grouping than I was, but I still gave it that D. I thought I was gonna have the lowest grade.
No, we know that this is a game Drax and me throwing Fs on.
Yeah.
Hey, I gave it some good grades where it was due. Just it's coming. It's coming. All right, so now we're moving on to questing. Nathan.
Questing. So, this is something I do a lot in ESO. I do a lot of questing, and I have for years. It's a game that I typically played on my PS4 downstairs on the big screen, and but all I would do was quest content, right? Like I would just run around the world, find something cool, do it, And so I've done a lot of questing in ESO over the years, and I do like it. I play it like it's a single player game. I play it like it's an Elder Scrolls game because it is an Elder Scrolls game. And I feel like that's what they were going for. They're like, hey, a ton of people are going to just want another Elder Scrolls game. So let's make this questing content for those people. And then we'll have the group-based PvP, and we'll have this, and we'll have that, and we'll have this and that and the third. So to me, I'm able to see it from that point of view that when you go out into the overworld and you're questing, that's for lore, that's for story, that's to pretend like you're playing a regular Elder Scrolls game. There just happens to be other people, and sometimes they do help you. Actually, almost every time, you'll end up working a boss together or clearing out a dungeon together as you're doing the questing. So there is some dynamic group play there. And I enjoy it a lot. And I think there's just I don't think. There is a ridiculous amount of content out questing. I mean, probably the most of any MMO out now, questing-wise. I mean, it's just outrageous. Years and years and years of just doing that. And I've nowhere even near seen everything in the game. So I give that a B+. I think it's its strongest, best part of the game, in my opinion.
All right, Mr. Therek.
Well, I mean, Nathan, you're right about one thing. It's the biggest part of the game. I don't think it's the best part of its game. It is so quest heavy, this game. And the problem is that the way that the stories themselves are good. They're not great. They're good. The ones that we did on the show were fun, and we had a good time sort of following the story and listening to the characters speak to each other. And the way that they tell it is kind of interesting with the characters, and they kind of do it in real time and everybody's hearing the conversations. I like that way more than the way Final Fantasy XIV tells their story. The problem is that the storytelling, when it comes to actually doing the dungeons, it's so constrained, I find, by the need for a dungeon to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like it's too linear for me. I found the story and the questing very linear. I'm just at a point maybe where it's like I've done so much in my life that I need more detail. I need more, not detail, but a bigger canvas to work with, I guess, because I just found them so straightforward, and they're well written, and the voice acting is decent, but it's just a little bit too simple. So I don't know. It takes up so much space in the gameplay though too, and that's the thing, is that we talk about Pantheon, they say, they make a world, not a game. I feel like ESO is a game and not a world. To sort of connect the two, I guess, because the story is too much tied to the gameplay and it doesn't stand on its own well enough, I guess. So
Can I ask a quick question?
yeah.
Did you mostly quest in the dungeons, or did you do a lot of the zone storylines?
No, we just did the dungeon
That's
stuff.
why, because I'm not
That's
talking about, I
why.
wasn't even referring
Yeah.
to dungeon quests. I was talking about the actual quest system of the game is in the overworld.
But
Yeah.
we grade on what we played.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
it's
I just
a-
want to make
it's a
it
fair
clear.
slice.
I'm
Yeah.
grading on a totally different thing than Therek is.
Yeah.
And one of the things I said right when we started playing was that I wanted to do like a video or write a script and tell a story of like how to play ESO with no questing at all. Like, can you play this game without doing any questing? Like, what kind of experience would that be? Because it's so propped up by its questing, I find. So anyway, I mean, at the end of the day, I gave it a B minus rather, because of all the reasons I said. So it's an interesting. This is probably the most interesting category of them all for me when it comes to this game.
Desryn.
I agree with a lot of things that Therek's saying, but maybe again because I have played a little bit wider scope of the game, I have a bit of a different opinion. I do think the questing is one of the strongest parts of this game for the type of game that it is. It is a quest hub, linear, um, what's the word? The theme park. Yeah, there we go. It's a theme park game, and all of the quests follow that. And they try to alleviate that feeling a little bit with having, different outcomes for quests or little nuggets within the quest that kind of add some flair. And there are a lot of additions that they do to the theme park formula that make it, in my opinion, as good as theme park can get. I gave this an A. Specifically for it's a theme park game. If this was grading on my personal preference, it would probably be a C or lower, because for me, this type of questing is something I'm in the mood for every once in a while, and this hits the spot perfectly. But outside of that, I would get bored with this so quickly. It gets so exhausting for me. That was the note that I had down, was the questing. If you just want to quest, which a lot of it's going to be solo, it's just exhausting, even if the quests are good, and that's kind of the sad part. But
100%.
yeah, but for the type of game, I would say best on the market. I can't think of another one that does it better. That's a theme park like this.
Sparoh.
All right. So this is one of my favorite parts about this game. I think it is one of the best parts about Elder Scrolls. It's definitely got that Elder Scrolls world feel. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the lore and immersion. So a lot of what I say kind of overlaps with questing. I love going to each and every zone. Each zone has its own storyline. They're interesting. They have interesting factions you can quest for. It's what I'm looking for when I want to go questing. I want there to be meaning. It's not really fetch quests or anything. There's a lot of voice acting and meaning behind the quests and the stories that they write for their characters. It definitely feels like a world that is lived in, and these characters kind of live and breathe and have interactions through. So it gets a triple A, like A plus plus
Ooh.
plus.
Wow.
It is what I'm expecting, not the hubby part of it. I don't like having the hubs, but what that deep lore and that feeling like when you talk to somebody, they have a life going on. So that's what I'm looking for when I want a quest.
Sparoh's grade doesn't even fit in the square.
However you would do your flaming F minuses or whatever, do the A.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Stan, Cryptfox.
Yeah, so even right now, I've already decided in my mind that I'm changing my grade a little bit. Because I have one foot on the side of what Therek and Desryn are saying, and then on the other part of me, I like everything Nathan and Sparoh has said, and I just really, really loved the richness of the story, and from the quests. I can overlook the quest hubs. I can overlook the linear storytelling of the dungeons, because to me it's like I'm playing a game, right? I recognize that, but I'm also keeping in mind that what Nathan said, and I had thought about that before. I was like, I know that they made this game for two audiences. So how are they gonna like satisfy it the best? Well, here, this is what they're doing. I hate the loot system. I don't think a Diablo ARPG loot system belongs in an MMO, especially the really bad rewards and the quests. Ugh, it was terrible. But I'm giving it a B minus.
B minus stands.
So I'm actually going to, I knocked a few points off of this one because I love the questing overall in ESO. If we were just looking at Morrowind on for the questing and how it uses storytelling and characters, the zones are distinct. You meet recurring characters as you go through the core zone stories, and they have their own obvious faction things that they're doing. It does a great job of having flavorful through lines that feel distinct, as well as all the side activities that you will just run into. You're going to get quest hub quests. You're going to get point of interest quests also when you're out in the world, and oh, it's a delve, it's a whatever. There's a quest there too. Then you're just going to have those random, oh, what's this note I found on a cliffside? Oh crap, that started a quest. So I love that there's the variety and tone and feel of the quests, and that they move you along. Quests, for the most part, especially a main zone quest, will send you other places in the zone so that you don't stay static. You move through the world if you are following that path. The knock is that pre-Morrowind questing, which is most of the stuff that y'all were doing because base game questing, the writing, aside from the Cold Harbor quests, just was not as good. So it's an A, but it's not a high A.
Regular
That's
A.
a really good point, by the way. I always dread redoing the OG content, but I love everything else.
Tetsu. Questing.
So the good, I enjoyed the quest mid dungeon. I like that you're able to like talk to the NPC and they'd move it along, and instead of just being told to go there, you complete the dungeon, you come back and all right, thanks for going there. This is what happened. Have a great day. I feel like I'm involved in the dungeon, so that is the good part of it. The bad part is like I didn't really care. I was just kept being sent to another dimension by an old guy in a cave constantly, and I honestly didn't care what was going on or what was happening. Granted, I have a bias towards beautiful Sunday morning, bright colored storylines and like a Saturday morning cartoon. I enjoy it. That's what I like, and this is definitely not that. So
Tetsu won in Somerset.
It's
Yeah.
Probably. So like I was not a fan of just the general theme of the game, but I do enjoy the dungeon was kind of interactive. So because of that, I just give it a middle of the road C. It's just any other MMO I can quest and do the same thing. I don't really like your theme, but you were a little more interesting in the dungeon. So even though.
That's really interesting because I have like the opposite with like Final Fantasy 14. Like I like this tone and theme way more than I like the Final Fantasy 14 theme, which I think you like more, Tetsu. That's really interesting that you say that.
Hey, Bountycode, thanks for the sub. So, questing. Yeah, it's WoW questing. It's redone. It's follow the exclamation points to the next part. For me, and the thing that, and again, I think I'm a little bit different than everyone else, especially Therek. We would drive each other crazy if in Pantheon.
We're running separate streams. Yes.
I really don't care about the story of it all. Like I just don't. I want a payoff at the end, right? That's the reason why I do quests. I want a payoff at the end, and the payoff is nothing. The payoff is something I'm going to vendor, and it's not something I'm even going to equip. And so the quests for me were just, I think Desryn said exhausting. I used the word in my grading sheet. I used the word, the quests make me sleepy. And they really did. Like, they make me tired. And I'm like, okay, finished playing an hour at ESO. Now I got to take a nap. And so it gets a C for me.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
They should really
it hurts.
revamp.
It hurts.
They should
to hear
revamp
it.
the new player experience so bad because it's sad that that's.
Yeah.
God dang, Draq, you just-
Hey, that's what new players are gonna feel. So
Yeah.
it is fair.
Yeah, that's a
It
good
is fair.
point.
God dang,
And
Draq, you
it-
just insulted Sparoh's cooking right there.
Sorry.
That's how bad that
I
was.
still love Sparoh, but the questing in this game, yikes.
It's also worth noting, I think a lot of us that have played a lot have the pattern of breaking up. I'm doing some quests and then I take a break and I craft, I run a dungeon, I do something else, as opposed to just, I'm going to sit down for 2 hours and quest. Not a lot of people, I think, do it that way because there are so many aspects of the game to interact with.
That was one part of my grade that I failed to add in the commentary, was that at least that's not the only thing to do in ESO.
Right.
And that definitely assists in my high grade.
And I think the exploration part of it feeds into the questing part of it, and you get that whole package all together.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that when I was streaming this game, I think I was leveling up, so I'd be ready for one of our streams or something. And I was streaming on my channel, and I was playing. I was trying to tell my audience who was watching me, who didn't know much about ESO, and I was like, guys, the quests are really cool. Like, you know, there's just so many random things out here in the world. And as I said that, I heard a woman, like, real muffled, be like, help me. And I look over
I was
and a
watching
frog
that. That was so
had
good.
eaten the woman right in front of my face. And I had to go over and fight the frog and, like, rip her out of it. And I was like, see? Some random, for no reason, just a cool little quest that I just happened to stumble upon while I was telling you about just dynamic, cool little quests. So
That's really cool.
All right. Class and spells. Nathan
Oh, here we
Napalm,
go.
I think it might take a few hits here.
yeah, so this is where I hate ESO, okay? I don't get it, because I'm going to always say this. There is no excuse for releasing a game and only having a few, 3 or 4 abilities. And I know you can switch hands. Forget about that. I like sword and board. People like certain things, and you know what I mean? I don't want to have to switch to a 2-hand to get 4 more. Woo! 4 more abilities, yay! Come on, that is ridiculous, man. And you can't. And the old tired excuse of like, oh, but they wanted it to be on consoles, dude. Final Fantasy XIV has 32 active abilities you can use anytime. My wife did content that was, current raid content with a controller. So that's just a lame excuse these days. There has been a million ways to use a controller and have 32 freaking active abilities at your fingertips. So, I hate that part of the game. It's too little, man. I mean, my goodness, dude. Like, and if you think about the way that the game works, where you have all these options of stuff to unlock, and then you have to pick 4 that you can use, that is insane. This game would go up in the how cool it was if it even just went to like, Pantheon style, like, 12 active ability, even 6. Yeah, even 6 would be massive.
That's actually what it is at 6.
If you count that, but you're saying, but that counts
5 and an ultimate. It's not 4.
How do you say 5? Are you counting the regular attack?
It's 5.
Well, yeah, but come on,
regular
auto
abilities,
attack.
you know.
I don't.
No,
There's
not
5
your regular
skills
attack.
and then an
5
ultimate.
5 skills. Ultimate is 6.
Ultimate.
Then light attack and heavy attack.
Okay,
So
well, they need to double
you're-
it. It feels like you have 4, because the ultimate is just like your special ability. Like, that could be done so many millions of ways. That doesn't feel like it's something you actually. That's just like your ultimate thing, So it feels like you're really only rotating between 4 actual things, because you got 4 buttons to press. Basically, is the way that it generally works with the general gameplay. I don't know what you're counting as the fifth one. Because there's four. There's four
No,
you
Nathan,
pick.
there's
No,
five.
it's not, Nathan.
There is five.
Okay,
I
whatever.
don't know
Okay,
how
okay.
your math works, but
Okay,
there's
there's
five.
four.
Whatever. It's
Four.
not enough. It's not enough. It feels like four. It feels like four. It feels
Nathan's
really
speaking
bad.
from the heart right now. He's
Yeah.
not using his head.
Yeah, I'm not
okay?
using math. I'm not using correct. I'm using my version of math. But it sucks, man. It freaking blows, dude. It's the worst part of the game. And you know what? A lot of people that are new, they use like one ability, and I know this for a fact. Not just new people. The end game is built in a way where people they make these builds where they can use one freaking thing, and that's it. So they're literally spamming one button, and that's because of the way their combat is built and the way that everything's designed. It's garbage, dude. And it ruins class gameplay or fantasy of like the class you're trying to build. It's just awful, man. So it could be worse because at least you can make it however you want it to be, right? So you can build. You want to be a mage that wears heavy armor. You want to, whatever. You make it up, and you can build that, which is crazy cool. So because of that, I gave it a C. But I hate it, by the way.
Up to a C.
But I do hate it. But
Nathan,
Eric,
love you.
I don't know how you're gonna top that.
I'm not even gonna try. Not even gonna try. I'll keep it short and sweet. I don't like that there's not enough hard choice to make. I found like the skill points are so abundant. Like you get a skill point for so many things in this game. Like I had oodles of skill points that I didn't spend. Because I'm like with the limitations on the action bar, like I'd filled up the ones I wanted. Like I had proceeded with everything I wanted to do in my build, and I still had 12 skill points. You should never be running around in an MMO with extra skill points that you're not spending because, like that seems ridiculous to me. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe there's something I'm doing wrong with it, but I didn't find there was enough decision making needed, not enough choice and consequence. In terms of like how the skills level up, I found it follows the Guild Wars 2, the New World method. I can't remember Guild Wars 2 exactly, but I know, like just using your skills levels them up. That's okay, but it's not like what I'm really looking for in an MMO. It's not the real way I'm looking to, because it takes away from the leveling aspect of it. It makes leveling less important and more about using your skills to be the primary thing. And on that note, one of the things when we were playing I enjoyed was hitting the bookcases to try and skill up stuff. I thought that is pretty cool. But then you're just clicking on bookcases over and over and over, and you're not really doing anything. You're not reading any of those. Like it just becomes like a click target more than anything else. There was no real depth to it. So it's okay. The combat is what the problem is here. The way the combat works, because there's no real area that we're going to grade where we can talk about the combat necessarily. So I just I factored that in here too, because I don't like the combat in ESO at all. I don't like everything about it. It's I like Final Fantasy 14 better. I like Guild Wars 2's combat better than this. I like New World's combat. It's close. It's really not like what I'm looking for. It's a clicky FPS kind of game for me, and I don't really enjoy that. So it suffers heavily on the grade. So I gave it a D- here.
All right, Deds.
All right. I get to tail off of Napalm a little bit here because I 100% agree. I hate bar switching, the weapon swapping. Like every build has to do a weapon swap. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like that is the most gamey, unnecessary thing. And if they change that, if instead of bar swapping you just got a straight 10 abilities and an
Please.
ultimate, like it would dramatically improve the game and the build styles to me. As well as how they do the buffs in the game. I think they were trying to simplify something to maybe make it easier to balance the game. So, you have your major sorcery, minor sorcery. They've got a kind of basic buff for everything, a major and minor for the most part. But the problem with that is that a build just becomes, okay, what's your source of major sorcery in your build? Because everyone needs it, or, that kind of a thing. And instead of looking for a buff from a class, all the classes kind of have access to most of the, you know, basic buffs that you need. And then you're looking for certain synergies elsewhere, which is not the same as looking for a specific other class. And that bothers me a lot. I think I understand why the skills and build system is as it is because it's an Elder Scrolls game. They wanted that freedom. They wanted to give you all sorts of different avenues of progression. And while I understand that, I do wish it was different. And it bothers me a lot. And I don't feel so much class identity, even when we're talking about like Draq making a Magicka Templar so that he could throw fireballs. It accomplishes it, I guess, but it doesn't hit the mark. It's not identity, especially because how you have to mix your abilities, generally speaking. Except as a healer, most of my bar is restoration staff, and that's just kind of like how a lot of those builds are. It really fails for me. So this was the low point for me. I would say there's a lot of variety in skills, and a lot of there are some really cool skills, but most of it feels meaningless and not unique. And I gave it a C simply because for an MMO to try to do what Elder Scrolls does, they're close, but not quite there for me. And it is the weakest point, and so I give it a C for me.
Girl.
The limited action bar, it's kind of for me. It's not my favorite thing. If I had to pick extremes between an action bar and EQ2 style, I would lean towards more EQ2 of having all of my abilities. So it loses points there. But I like that you have the freedom to pick any weapon. I'm not so locked in, like I only identify with my class if it has a bow, or like Nathan with the sword and board, that is your class, or Draq with the nuking staff.
Whoa.
But you can also go through a lot of factions and get points and skills that you can use, like Undaunted, the Mages Guild, the Fighters Guild, the Thieves Guild. I mean, there's so many things you can mix and match that I actually really like that part of it. If I could use more of the abilities, I'd like it more. It would get a higher grade from me. The class identity, again, because you have so much options, is meh. But you can build the class that you can imagine. So if you like having a plate-wearing mage, you can do that. You can play any way you want to play. I like that freedom. It gets a B+ from me, which is maybe the highest grade of the night for this one. But I like it. I like the options.
Cryptfox.
Ooh, man. What I can't say that hasn't already been said. So I'm gonna try and say some different things, but I want to say that I do like the Necromancer class, and I liked it more when I first started playing it after I found out I could be a healer necro. But then I found out that every class has kind of like a heal.
You are not a
So
special snowflake.
Nope.
I felt special in the moment.
For a very short period of time, you were special.
But I hate the limited minus action bar. Because I don't know, but I think if you're gonna go limited action bar, bare minimum 6-7 abilities. But I can be a necromancer or I can be a death knight, depending on the armor and weapon I'm wearing. So I really like that versatility, and I know you were talking about that, Sparoh. I really love that. I could be a healer necromancer, I could be a summoner. I love being able to have like different specs just depending on how I want to play that day. Um, I love the way that you can morph the abilities, you acquire abilities and gain experience and augment them. I love that. I love being able to see a spell or ability change based on my choice. And this is the same thing that I had pointed out when we played Lost Ark. I love seeing the abilities change there. There's something that I really love about that. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna give it a B minus. I think it's fair. I can be a freaking vampire lord with thousands of bats flying around me. Who wouldn't want that, right?
Yeah, you did look pretty cool.
The Vampire
Yeah.
Lord was definitely the coolest part.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
looked better than all of us.
Stands in the
I was the
fire.
raid boss.
Yeah, so like people have already touched on, your class is not your role inherently in ESO. Any class can be built to fill any role, although there are definitely some classes that are much stronger at some of the roles than the other. That primarily comes into play when you are doing the harder content. That is your, top 5, top 1% is when that really starts actually being noticeable. For example, I could have made my DK a healer if I really wanted to. I could have thrown on a restoration staff and I could have made that DK a healer. My class gives me no support there. It would be purely based on picking up a restoration staff and unlocking and leveling skills in that line, whereas I've healed on Warden, I've healed on Templar, I love my Nightblade healer, which is a really fun health siphoning and distribution healer build. All 3 of those healers play drastically different because of the mix of class abilities that I am bringing in, as well as just doing the brain dead, I have a resto staff and I've unlocked some skills and tossed my bar, I'm a healer. So there is a degree of interactivity there in your class design, as well as where you're pulling abilities from. And you absolutely can keep that class flavor and class fantasy. It's just not a hard locked class fantasy to roll fantasy. I am also very much I think I might be one of the few people here who is very much a pro limited action set person. I am the anti EQ2. Partly because I am the old guy with really bad hands. So, I hate to say it, the least that I have to look down the keyboard for, because my hands lie. Muscle memory does me very little good. My hands will lie to me, is a plus in my book. I'm going to actually knock this category because it's been so long where we've gotten more guild skill lines, more skill lines from the world and all over the place. I really think that the core class skill lines are overdue for a revamp and a rework, possibly an expansion in what you have to pull from there. So for that, I actually didn't fill out my sheet using minuses and pluses this time. I just went straight grades. This is a B, but it is the lowest of Bs. This was just up from a C.
Tetsu.
All right, so for this one, I wrote on my sheet /face roll /face roll /face roll /roll. That was actually good. But the point being is that I could not stand the combat at all. At all. I was at one point I was moving my finger across 1 through 5, just literally just doing that while looking away. I felt no class identity. I couldn't tell what anyone was out. Like usually you go into MMO and like that guy's all holy and bright. He's maybe a paladin. That person's spooky and creepy. You're a necromancer. But everyone was I couldn't really tell what anyone was at any point.
I'm
Everyone was
insulted, Tetsu. You couldn't
no,
tell I was a necromancer?
Besides,
A
besides
vampire
Cryptfox,
necromancer?
besides you.
besides you and Therek was just some cool glowing Iron Man looking guy. But other than that, really there was just no identity. Like when I was in the group, I felt like I was playing well, I guess it is action combat, but I was playing like Marvel's Avengers or something. Like I'm just out there fighting randomness. I didn't feel like any type of class, to be honest. And even when I looked through the class specifics, I'm like, there's nothing here that really I like linearity. I like a solid. This is what I do. In RuneScape, when I was like 12, I picked all strength. I want a pure character. I want pure this. I don't want hybrid nonsense. I do what I do, and I do it well. And I didn't feel any of that in ESO. I rolled well, but other than that, I didn't
I mean,
really.
except for when
Right
you rolled
off
in
the
lava.
cliff.
You know,
That
except
was
for that one time.
that's rolling well.
That was rolling hilariously, and he won when he did that.
Yeah, he entertained
I
us,
think
so
that's
that
a
was a
win.
win.
Yeah, Sarah said stereotyping. Yes, I love to be stereotyped into my job, class, or role. But yeah, so there was just I wrote Noah class identity. Everyone can really do everything. No one is anything. And I don't like action combat. Kind of like stands. I prefer, and I actually realized this just recently playing Classic with my younger brother. He loves 14 because the combat is constant moving. There's big combinations, rotations, you keep going. He pointed out to me, he's like, I'm playing Classic and I press 3 things. I stab 3 times and I unleash a big stab. I stab 3 times, I unleash a big stab. And I was loving it. I was enjoying it. But he did bring it to light that I like a limited action set. I'm good with doing five buttons at the time that it's needed. Um, so yeah, that's in so I'm okay with the limited action set, but again, I felt like I never really needed to do anything. There were just 5 abilities there. So yeah, this actually got an F minus from me, my lowest score in like all the grading. Like I did not like it at all. I at one point when I told my younger brother he's playing, he's like, I like 14 with abilities, and I'm playing classic. I'm like, you got to slow it down. You got to slow it down. Slow it way down, youngin, because this is way too much stuff happening here. But yeah, that's my score on it and my
That
thoughts.
was really well said. Tetsu. It was super good.
Yeah. So I cheated. I had massive help from Stands and Fire, and he created like this amazing Templar fire class that I absolutely enjoyed. I'm guessing I would have really, really crushed this section had it not been for that.
There is so much to learn and discover that in a short time period like this, finding something focused and saying, hey, here's something you're probably going to like.
Right. So Stans was like, take these skills, do this thing, here's your class, this is what you're going to love. And I loved it. It was great. It played exactly how I wanted to play it. It was kind of mid-range, not like super long range, but kind of a mid-range fire thing. I was hurling fireballs around. I was applying burn effects. That piece of it for me was fantastic. I loved it. I think it's funny where people kind of inserted combat, their opinions on combat with sections. I didn't insert my combat here. I was going just more kind of how the class itself felt. So I thought it was not too bad. So I gave it a B plus. The Templar Fire Wizard was fun.
Can I also second the Stan's adding to this experience for me too? Because having him along with our group was it just added so much to it. I mean, having an expert like that and somebody who can really like point out the nuances of it is ridiculously helpful.
Dan, could you send me a paladin cut? I'm going to continue playing the game like I always do.
Nathan, remember how I was talking about some classes really support a role and some don't?
Yeah.
Templar supports healer and magicka-based, DPS and stuff. There is very little in your class toolkit that is going to support a tank.
That's all I have to have. Literally.
Yeah, your class kit as a Templar brings very little to what ESO wants from a tank, which is buffs, sustain, crowd control, defensive cooldowns. You don't have any of that in your kit as a Templar. DK. You want a DK.
Okay, so, that's what I played of on the PS4.
So to sum up, one person listened to Stans and one person did not. And the person that
I didn't know to ask. I didn't know he was cheating for you guys, or I would have too.
Well, here I'll help you out, Nathan. Here, the first tip from Stans: put the 5th ability on your bar.
I don't know why I was sitting here thinking, I was like, you know what, there are 6. I was playing the controller, so it seemed like there was 4, but I forgot there's the L and
Listen,
R and
Nathan,
Therek, you mean
you
there's
didn't need that
5
fifth skill
abilities?
anyway. You didn't need that fifth
Oh, did
ability
you?
anyway. It's fine.
it really wasn't necessary. All I had to do was stab everything. I had to walk
Stab
around,
everything.
stab you, because that was the taunt. That was the only taunt ability I had. So literally, my job was just to stab everything over and over again.
You were just doing the shuffle right there for a quick second, Nathan.
True story. All right, PvP. We actually have a game where we all play PvP, and I feel like we were pretty
Yay.
successful at it. So,
I would say so.
yeah. So Nathan, PvP, go.
So I've always said that I've enjoyed the PvP in Elder Scrolls Online. I'm not like a master of it or anything, but it's a super fun time. Now I'm speaking specifically about Cyrodiil. I've never gotten into the arena gameplay because Cyrodiil exists, and that's my style of PvP, where there's Zergs and there's just massive battles that feel like these crazy fantasy medieval Lord of the Rings style freaking catapults getting rolled out and firing and blowing up parts of the freaking keep, and you're rushing in through the hole, and you're fighting mages are up in the rafts firing down at you. I mean, it's just freaking awesome. You just almost can't help but have a good, if you like fantasy, you like Lord of the Rings, you like those big war moments, I just don't see how you wouldn't just drop a tear of joy from going out in Cyrodiil. I love Cyrodiil. I think it's the coolest freaking thing. It was developed by some of the gods of the PvP developers from Dark Age Camelot came in to design that specific part of their PvP for them back when they were making the game. Freaking loved it, and I was scared when we all went together that you guys weren't going to have a good time and you weren't going to see the glory, because you never know, it could have been a bad night and just nothing cool was happening that night. So I was afraid, but once we got on that and we're like, hey, we may not be able to fight the main force, but we can go and we can like aggravate them to death, and we can take the little things, and man, I just had a really good time. I think they're the only problem I have with their PvP is that and we didn't really experience this, but I know that Cyrodiil has a lot of lag issues. Much better than it used to be, but I can't give it a perfect score because there's some major issues. I'm not going to get into it, but they've had to do some really crazy things to keep Cyrodiil functioning. So that's the only reason I don't give it an A+, but I do give it an A-. I love it.
Redbeard Flynn, thanks for the sub. Yes, and everyone should definitely direct your vision to Therek wearing his Bears hat. Congratulations to the Chicago Bears for their 1 win this season.
Bears.
Yeah, maybe Mother Nature help,
Bears.
and if it's the only one we get, I'll take it. I'm gonna wear my hat today and enjoy it. So,
Therek, PvP.
yeah. Speaking of arena battles, good segue there. But that's what we did. I don't have much to say here. We had fun when we did it. PvP for me is never going to be more than a side thing, a mini game, even, and that's what it was. It was a nice diversion from what we were doing. When we were playing it, I had fun because I wasn't taking it seriously. If I was taking it seriously, I might feel differently about the PvP in the game because I'm not a serious PvP player. The one thing I'll say is that it was noticeable when somebody had really good PvP gear as opposed to us noobs doing, whatever we were doing. Like Stans is like, he'll explain it, I'm sure, but like it was clearly an imbalance in terms of your ability in the PvP arena. So we didn't do Cyrodiil, we did the arena battles, and they were fun. So I gave it a B. So yeah.
Sparoh.
Is it Des or Sparoh?
Oh, I'm sorry, Desryn. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
off.
I was just going to let it happen, if you
No,
don't
it's
want to
fine.
hear my opinion.
I got confused.
There must be order.
So PvP in ESO, this is a tough one because there's a lot. There's a lot of different PvP avenues. There's pretty much something for every different PvP desire you could have in this game, and for that, I think that's great. On the other hand, I do feel like it makes it feel very tacked on or unoriginal. I gain innate points for this because I loved Guild Wars 2's World versus World. I love that you don't have to be in the Zerg to influence things. And sorry about that. But I love that there are all these different options you can have. But when I actually am playing it, I'm gonna be honest, it feels like World versus World from Guild Wars 2 with an ESO skin. And I just wish it felt a little bit more. I don't know. There would have to be something in the game that makes it feel like you have to PvP, or that there's some big gain you get from PvPing. That like the skill line it wasn't enough for me. And the active PvP was exactly what I expected. No more, no less. It gets all chaotic and everything. I would have liked a little bit more strategy. But yeah. All in all, though, I gave it a B+ because I think it's probably one of the top tier experiences for PvP in a modern MMO. And there's pretty much something for everyone. So yeah, B+, but not my favorite.
Now, Sparoh.
All right. So I had a lot of fun. That's the first thing I put down because just going in there as a group, I think that was just a lot of fun. I don't think I'd done that before where I had a set group just to wander into this giant zone. So big points for me that it's this huge world you can go around in. I liked the open world and the choices that you could go harvesting, you could go questing, or you could go fight in the PvP big battles, or like Nathan said, the little tiny forts and lumber mills and things like that. So there's more to do in that big zone than just PvP. So I'm going to give it an A. I don't have a lot of PvP experience, but I know it was a lot of fun.
Cryptfox.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It reminded me a lot of like Warhammer, the Guild Wars 2, but I didn't have so much fun with the queued PvP, but I did have a lot of fun with like the open world PvP. I actually wanted to do a whole lot more of it that night too. Uh, because I was having a blast just like trying to keep everybody healed up and running back and forth and trying to find people because we got lost in the mix. It was even fun like just dying. I think I had said like, we're in the Vanguard now, we're putting their abilities on cooldown. That was actually like fun to like just go into it with people that don't usually do PvP. So I had fun with it. I gave it a B. Wasn't the
Stance.
greatest PvP, but it was good.
Right, so ESO I've actually PvP'd a lot in with different characters. I'm going to touch briefly on, there are battlegrounds, which are typically 15 to 20 minute, just get in, team versus team versus team, draw a random objective, arena PvP. I actually like that as just a side activity, only because you know that it is not going to end up in a slog. It is going to end within at least a halfway reasonable time, as opposed to it's 2 hours later and nobody's made any progress.
Wow, Battlegrounds. We see you.
Wow, Alterac Valley in the old days. I'm looking at you. Cyrodiil is the highs and lows of PvP. In the best of times, you get in with a good, with a good group, a good rush. The map is fairly balanced. You're able to actually get into siege, siege battles where there's players on both sides, not just NPCs on both sides, and that is an absolute blast. The flip side of it is, man, Cyrodiil can be laggy and really nasty performance-wise. That's something that they know it's an issue, they're working on addressing, but it is not their top priority. It just isn't, because the PvP player base is a small but very vocal minority in ESO. The third part of PvP is actually something that none of us did just because of access to it, which is the Imperial City sewers. That is my favorite part of PvP in ESO. You have to be more coordinated and get a group together going in because you're in a mixed PvP zone where you're going through and kind of squad stealthing through things and fighting objectives and world bosses in there. At the same time, the other factions are also in there trying to do the same thing and potentially ganking you as you do it, as well as the big boss in the middle. With an organized group, it's a blast. But just due to how bad the lag can be in Cyrodiil and how bad it can be if you get into a campaign where it is either dead or your side's getting steamrolled, as well as how much of an impact people who gear for PvP have versus people going in because they want to level up a PvP skill line to get some unlocks or just try it out. It can absolutely be game-changing having even one or two people that are decked out in full impen gear. You just cannot touch those people. So for the balance and performance issues and only one real mode I truly enjoy, which is locked behind access, I gave it a C.
Tetsu.
All right, I'll keep mine short since I don't really have many thoughts on PvP. I generally don't do PvP. But I will say, I put the lack of caring about abilities in class actually made PvP silly and fun. I enjoyed PvP. I feel like I don't enjoy PvP because I suck at PvP because I have to know what I'm doing. But since I didn't have to know what I was doing, I was simply running around, rolling around, grabbing the ball and capture the flag or king the hill, whatever it was we played, and that was a ton of fun. So, yeah, that got an A. I liked it mostly because I didn't know what I was doing, and that was a good thing.
I love it.
Yeah, that's good.
That's probably why it got an A from me as well,
Yeah,
because I
me
didn't know what
too.
I was doing. I just had
Right on the
fun.
same wavelength, yeah, for sure.
I spent too much time and took it seriously. Yeah.
And
I think
surprisingly,
people like
the
everything
lower
in life.
score.
As soon as you
Yeah.
start taking it seriously, it just becomes
Then
unfun.
it's in trouble. Hey Nathan, in DOC, what's the zone that does that with the PvP and the PvP?
Darkness Falls.
Yes, Darkness Falls. That's one of my favorite zones of all times.
And that's what the Imperial Sewers is representing. It
Right.
totally is Darkness Falls,
Dude.
except for it's always open, whereas Darkness Falls,
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah, because I love DAOC and I love Darkness Falls. That's some of the best content, PvP content that is out there, in my opinion, because you have to win castles in the regular PvP realm, and then that unlocks PvE content, and bosses and gear that you want to farm because you get better gear. That for me is like the ultimate win. We didn't actually get to do that. We just did the open world PvP. And for me, that was so much fun. And I didn't know about the lag problems. We hit it on a sweet night. We had zero lag. We had zero issues. I went into that night thinking we were just going to get ruffle stomped. And everywhere we went, we were just going to die. And kind of what we did in Warhammer or any of the other games we've ever PvP'd in, right? Where we just see one person and they destroy us. But we actually killed some people. Cryptfox and I killed one guy, and we were running around killing people, and we were definitely lower powered. But if we got together and we did teamwork, and it was super fun, and we
Draq, don't downplay it, dude.
Oh
like
my
killing
goodness.
that one guy, that
We
was
did
like the
kill that
battle
one guy.
at Helm's Deep,
We watched
dude.
the battle at Helm's Deep. I dodged everything he sent at me, and then we barely killed him. Right? It was epic. But
Helm's Deep right there. The
it
last
was.
man.
Yeah, and then we invaded that castle, and as we invaded the castle, there was like cannon shots coming through the entryway as we were running through. Like it was.
I got to shoot that big bow and arrow thing from the top.
Yeah,
That was fun.
It was so much fun. And so for me, this is Guild Wars 2. This is DAOC. This is the best that the best PvP that there is, really, the open world PvP, other than the Darkness Falls type situation. So I gave it an A+. I loved it. I had so much fun, and I would totally go back and do the PvP in ESO. It's my favorite part of the whole game, is the PvP. So it's the by far the oops, I have a B+.
Yeah.
I meant
We won a battle today, Nathan. We won a battle today. We got Draq converted over. Sparoh's in our darkest
He
night.
just needed something that reminded him of DAOC. 'cause
it's
he
true
liked
story.
DAOC.
But
To me, this just sounds like, man, this is the best version of my least favorite type of mechanic.
Well,
yeah, and I gave it an A. That's
I mean,
I don't know how much more I can be
Sparoh,
converted.
too, yeah, Sparoh. Yes,
Yeah, that's right.
He's not into PvP at all.
yeah.
Except
All
maybe
right.
the unmentionable game. I like that one too.
What game is that?
You're allowed to mention as long as you say classic after.
Oh, okay. So WoW
That's the rules.
Classic.
Yeah, you
I
can
like
say that.
I like their PvP as well. The Battlegrounds.
All right, moving forward. Sound and graphics. Nathan Napalm.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty obvious that Elder Scrolls Online has beautiful graphics, like just freaking. It's arguable because of styles if it's the best, right? Because the style people may not like, but I think it's pretty hard to argue that it doesn't look really freaking good. You know, it looks great. The lighting effects are really good, and they've updated those a lot over the years too. Not too long ago, they did that. I don't know, the NVIDIA whatever that made the lighting. It was a big difference. So they've tried to keep up to date with the engine that they have, and I think they've done a pretty good job. It's one of those games where it might be the best graphics to me of an MMO. Like I like the style and the grittiness and the Elder Scrolls kind of feel it has better than like New World. Like New World might technically be better graphics, but I would prefer Elder Scrolls over it just because of the style that it does. And I think the sound and the music, dude, that game has some really just crazy good soundtracks in it. And I think the sound effects were fine too. As a matter of fact, I think if some of those sound effects weren't as good as they are, the combat would be really like unbearable. I think sometimes the sound effects are what keeps the combat from just falling into I can't even play this, it's so bad. So I do like the graphics a lot. I think I think it's probably why it's one of the top MMOs. I think that's a definite reason why so many people play is because it just looks so darn good. So I gave it an A+.
Nice, Therek.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with any of that. It's probably the best looking MMO we've played on the show, I think, for sure. It's beautiful. It's captivating. It makes me want to go out and explore the world. Just when I see it, I want to go and I want to. But that's the downside of this game, of such a good looking game, and I feel like it's a little bit wasted because I feel like the world isn't rewarding for exploration. All those beautiful scenes and vistas and places you can go. Going there, you might find a sky shard. You might find, I don't find it very satisfying to go out and explore the world, even though I want to. And that's a big problem for me. And the other thing too is that because of the way with the Dungeon Finder, when I've been out exploring the world, I don't find a lot of other people out there. I mean, you see occasionally somebody running by, or maybe there's like a world boss that's up and there's a couple people there, but it's not populated. Like it's a bit of a beautiful empty world, and that bothers me a lot, like a lot, because if I was out there and I was seeing a group camped at a lake because there's a mob that spawns there, that's what I'm looking for. Like that's what I want. The world has to include that. You can make a beautiful world, but if it's empty and lifeless, it doesn't feel very good. And that's kind of where this game, where the graphics land for me. The music and the sound is amazing. I love the theme music. I love hearing the characters, the NPCs play. I love hearing Maluka and singing in the taverns and all the stuff that's in there. And I mean, I had to mention that, right? Because it's such a iconic part, and just the theme music, the ESO motif and the theme is awesome, and it's epic, and it makes me feel good. We talked about it during our streams that hearing the NPCs call out to each other, like heal me, like that's really funny and it's very cool. It's just kind of like window dressing it. I don't know if it really does anything, but it's fun and it feels good when you hear that. But again, this is one of those games where I would be harsh. I would be more harsh than I should be because I don't feel like it utilizes the beautiful graphics as much as it should. I feel like it's a bit of a wasted asset, for lack of a better word. So I gave it an A minus, but the minus is only because it doesn't fulfill its potential a little bit.
It feels like window shopping, doesn't it, Therek?
Yeah. Like it's great. I'll never. It doesn't fit that oomph for me. It never gets there.
Desryn.
Yeah.
I think Elder Scrolls Online is one of the last gorgeous handcrafted worlds that we have in MMOs today. Some might find this surprising, but while I'm happy that they, for Pantheon, they're using procedural assistance, the commonality of this kind of stuff in modern level design, I think is starting to become a little bit detrimental, where things start to look either too realistic or I don't even want to say too natural, but there's a certain amount of handcraftedness that goes away when you use these modern tools. And ESO is really the last bastion for me I look at the level design of Elder Scrolls Online and I'm like, I feel like someone placed that there. And especially with the environmental storytelling that we've doted on quite a bit, there's so much care that was put into building this game world, and the graphics showcase it really well. I'm glad someone mentioned style because the style isn't particularly perfect for me. I think it's a little outside of the typical Elder Scrolls look, but it's good enough for me. And I love that they've updated things to keep it modern. We just don't see that very often. The sound is incredible. It's not a Jeremy Soule soundtrack, but it's about as close as you can get from someone else. And the NPC callouts. One thing that we didn't mention earlier in the questing thing, which I thought I needed a note, was all the little things that come from questing. I could have mentioned the mementos and all that stuff, but when you're walking through town, and they're audio designers, and they thought, hey, we should make these NPCs call out things that your character has done. And that little detail was so unnecessary, but so appreciated. And
I hear you stopped the Malmer invasion.
it's so silly, but it matters. It still makes me feel cool when I get called out for something that my character did. And that adds so much to the soundscape of the game that it's not just the same thing every time you walk through a place. It can be dynamic. The combat sounds are great. And I would just say it's not the best looking MMO for me, but for being an 8-year-old game, dang, they've kept it on top. So I gave it a straight A.
Sparoh.
Okay, so there's not much I can say from the high praise. Everybody's given it. I agree with all of it. It also goes in with the immersion that the game is just so beautiful and immersive, and you go in it, you can just go off wandering. I can't think of how many times I've gone up over a hill and seen the sun coming down through the trees and just literally call Bounty Code over and like, look at this, look how beautiful this is. And it's just jaw dropping. So if you haven't experienced it, I definitely recommend it. Where it loses points for me is the character art. I find, in contrast to the beautiful world, the characters are ugly.
Yep.
Yeah, I like to make my characters look good, and I think that it's almost impossible. Maybe the Bretons can look decent, but any of the elves, anything like that, I think they're hideous. So
I never wear helms in MMOs except in this game. Sans gave me a helm that looked better than my character.
that's an Elder Scrolls problem, though. I
Yes.
think it's always
Yes.
been that way in Elder Scrolls games.
Yeah, Oblivion, Skyrim, they're all ugly. I don't know why they can't make a good looking character. So that's where the only place it loses. It sounds beautiful. It is immersive. I love the call outs, just like Des mentioned. So it gets a solid A for me.
Cryptfox.
I don't know. Maybe it's just those ugly high elves and wood elves. These dark
They are
elves,
the best.
they look pretty good.
Crypt's all like, I don't know about you guys, but I make this look
My elf is
good.
gorgeous.
Exactly. I think the graphics and the sound of the game just amazing all around. I didn't really like dwell too much on some of the other races to see how those look. I knew I wanted to play a dark elf, so I just went right to it. Um, but I'm giving all of it an A because I remember what these characters looked like in beta. And they were like rag dolls, and they were gross, and it was the main reason why I didn't stick with ESO. I was like, I don't want to play a game where my character looks like this. It was a big pain point. Um, I love the entrances to all the bosses. That was amazing, and just, like, the level of care that they put into having all the lighting just right to highlight the boss and, the ominous sounds and everything going on. It was just great. I loved it.
Stands.
So I'm glad you brought that up too, Crypt, because one of the high points I think in their use of graphics is somebody in their encounter and world design has a great eye for framing scenes, because they have some of the best walk into a well-framed reveal /scene /scenery vista that you're going to get in a lot of games. I love that the zones as you go through the game all are very well done in their art style. They have their own feel. I think the engine largely serves that well. The problem that I largely have with the game comes in for sound and graphics comes to threefold, three main pieces. Character models, like, man, they are hit or miss. So there is no way around that, and it is an Elder Scrolls thing. It still is a knock for me. I don't think they use environmental sound design a lot of the time particularly well, especially to denote movement or things going on around you from a distance. I think it's a performance thing, to be sure, because again, the game is made so that it runs well on consoles, not just on PCs. I think that's a place where it shows. And also, I've seen some of the newer stuff, and it really makes going back to some of the older areas hurt, because I've seen some of the new, lighting and texturing effects that they've got going on, even in just one of the brand newly released DLC dungeons, and then going back and seeing some of these zones, like, man, these need a touch up. So I gave it a B.
If you let me just kind of like piggyback off of Stan's again, because it came out after he had mentioned it, but like the entrances that I was talking about, I think the reason why they're so impactful to me, along with all the lighting and the sound and everything, is that look at every other MMO that we kind of play. We walk into the room and the boss is just standing there waiting for us to come attack it. And in ESO, they have an entrance.
Complete with theme music, and yeah.
Just like the wrestling shows back in the day.
Yeah. It is a little WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Tetsu.
So for this one, I gave it the good, the bad, and the ugly for this one. So specifically, I said the good was the graphics. Like everyone's saying, it actually is pretty decent graphics. And I'm gonna compare this to, I've mentioned this before, cars. Someone might like tuner cars. Someone might like muscle cars. Um, and sometimes you have to give credit where credit is due. You may not like that particular style of car, but it's a nice car, regardless if that's what you like. So in this case, I say this is it has good graphics. I'm gonna say I went with bad optimization simply because I compare it to, in my mind, this peer, which is 14, and in 14 my previous machine never skipped a beat with it. With this machine, which is not very much better, but it's newer than my old one, and textures were loading in constantly on characters. I'd walk up to someone and their armor was just loading in. I'm like, this game is just as old as 14. It ran on consoles. 14 doesn't run on consoles anymore. I don't know if ESO stopped console support. Maybe it didn't. It did. I'm not sure. But either way, it just didn't feel as optimized. And then that's the bad, and then the ugly is just the game because I don't like the aesthetics of the Elder Scrolls series. I mean, uh, to me, again, this is very opinionated right here. So I want to at least say it looks good. Even I thank Stan for giving it a higher score because he would point out, hey, look above us, look at all the swirling clouds. Or when someone would come in Dragon Ball Z style on a meteor and land in front of us, the mobs, then we had to kill them. Very cool. I liked all that. But in terms of the aesthetics, I'm like, you can replace this with The Witcher, Fable, Fallout. It's all ugly. I don't like it. But in lieu of that, I'm gonna give it a C. It brought it back up because it is a fine graphical game, if that's what you like.
Not enough weeb for Tetsu.
Not enough.
Aw.
There's no cat people. There's no cat people. What kind of world is this?
There's not even-
could be.
Yes,
There are,
sir.
but no, I mean, it's aesthetics. Aesthetics is a personal taste, and so even though I don't agree with Tetsu, I totally get your point. Like that's something that is going to vary from person to person. That's totally fair.
I think every MMO has to have the beautiful race. Obviously, we all know it's Dark Mirror and Pantheon, right? We all agree. Everybody
Amen.
knows that's the
Amen.
beautiful race. But
Amen,
anyway,
Dark Mirror.
there is none in ESO. There's no beautiful race.
Shelves.
Nice. Well, I'm not going to repeat everybody. I thought the graphics were great. I thought the sound was great. I thought the boss entrances were amazing. Yeah, if you Pantheon, if you can copy that, like hands up, thumbs up, do that. Like figure out how to do that. The entrance of the boss was amazing. Like it came in, you felt like you were about to take down the most amazing boss ever, and then you just kind of rolled your face on the keyboard and then died. Like but the entrance was amazing, so I gave it an A because it's a pretty game, and it is, and it looks really pretty on my very nice graphics card. I had it all the way cranked up. For me, I didn't have any issues at all, but I have a pretty beefy graphics card, so.
For reference, just so everyone knows, and I don't know if it's optimized or not. I ran 14 at max and was getting, I think, 45 to 60 frames per second. I sit at 60 just to 45, and I have a 1650 with an i5. ESO, I was getting 60, but my textures, I don't know what it was. Like everything would just take forever to load in, and so again, both games came out at the same time. Both
That-
It can
that's-
happen no
that's
matter your
not you.
graphics card. Yeah,
Te-
it can
text-
happen. Yeah.
Texture pop in and optimization is absolutely an issue. You are 100% correct.
It's the engine, I think. I think it's the engine. I'll say this too. Final Fantasy 14 probably has one of the craziest wizardry engines I've ever seen. Because I ran that on a piece of crap computer and didn't see any lag with like medium graphics. That game's a wizard. I don't even know how they did that. They got something. Yeah, they got to deal with the devil going on there.
They really do compared to the beta.
A piece of baling wire and some chewing gum holding that thing down.
I don't know how it's so smooth, dude. It makes no sense.
All right. Cash shop and monetization. Nathan Napalm.
Okay, so I'm going to say this about ESO. I don't like cash shops. Everybody knows that. Here's the deal, though. Overall, I feel like you can completely enjoy ESO and avoid the cash shop for the most part, right? Or that's kind of a lie, but it's not, because you there are things you're going to definitely want that you really are going to want to get from the cash shop, but I feel like they give you enough with your sub to where you can get the things that you need from the cash shop. And then, if there's like, you want that bear mount or whatever, you just save up for it. And I feel like it's totally feasible without you having to spend a single dime, except for one thing. This is ESO's only cash shop problem, in my opinion. It's the armor, dude. The cool stuff is in the cash shop. It's in the freaking... If you see somebody in the game, you're like, ooh, he looks cool. Bet you got that in the cash shop. Now, they do rotate things, so it's not like all these things are always available to get in the cash shop, so it'll be like... But that's kind of a FOMO. That's good and that's bad. That's kind of like, ooh, if you don't buy it right now and spend all the points we just gave you for the month, you might have to wait till next year to get this again, So, it's kind of bad, but at the same time, at least... you don't know that, so like a new player, they'll see somebody with armor, it's not in the cash shop, they'll think they got it in the game, so I guess it's a little better than it just always being available. But this is what I always talk about, like, there's no good way to do a cash shop. There is no lawful good way to do a cash shop. It is always evil. It might be neutral evil, that's how I feel like this game is. It may be chaotic evil, like most games are, but I think for having a cash shop, it's not as bad as most games. So I gave it I forgot what I gave it. I gave it a C.
That's a high mark for a game that has a cash shop for Mr. Nathan Apalm.
Yeah, it's neutral evil.
Therek.
Well, I mean, I had some pretty negative opinions about the way that ESO was monetized when we started out, and then I had some conversations about it, and I sort of learned a little more, and the more I learned, the more I came around to understand why it works the way it does and why it's not the worst thing in the world. But at the end of the day, I mean, Nathan, that's the whole point, is all the prestige, or I feel like a lot of the prestige stuff comes from the cash shop, and it's just like I don't know why I'm doing stuff in the world if I'm not getting prestige out of doing it, like personal prestige or prestige from my peers. I want to look cool. I want to be recognized for the things I've done, and the cash shop short circuits that to some extent, for almost the entirety of the extent. So it's the same old argument with every other game we play with a cash shop. That's my big problem. And so there's nothing real new to say here. So I gave it a C.
Desryn.
So you guys have said a lot of things that I agree with. And what it came down to for me was the cash shop is so insanely integrated with the entire game. And there are other games we've played that are also very integrated into the game, but in a really negative way. And I hate to say that it's at least a neutral way for ESO, but what it comes down to is everything that they do with the cash shop, if it was just done just for in-game, like, it would be better. Literally everything. And it's like, sure, they have ways that you can earn cash shop stuff, either by saving up from your monthly sub, or endeavors, or they have events that happen, throughout the year constantly, to get cool stuff. There's all these other things, but then that's not an excuse. It still would be better if you just didn't have the cash shop and turned all of that into in-game stuff only. And so while I still believe that it is one of, if not the best integrated cash shops in MMO gaming, as far as not being a detriment to players, keeping it fair, making sure that you can get pretty much everything that you want with minimal additional spending, if any at all. I like the whole sub gives you that amount of crowns, but it's just still it's a cash shop. Doesn't matter how good you do it. And so for the sake of them seeming to attempt to do it as less bad as possible, I gave it a B. But that is just because they tried.
Can only polish your turd so much.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Sparoh.
Yeah, everybody's pretty much said my sentiments. I have written down not horrible. You must have a sub for the harvesting bag. Like you could play this game free to play, but you need a sub. If you're gonna do any kind of harvesting or anything, you need that harvesting bag to put all that stuff in. Definitely worth it. What else? Oh, I find the cash shop actually really tempting. My weakness is mounts. I love all their cool mounts and everything. That is the most tempting thing. Now I can use my sub points to be able to get those things. So again, not horrible, but so it's kind of a love-hate relationship I have with it. So it gets a C. C from me.
Bounty codes all like, we're a little light this month, Sparoh. What the heck happened?
Bounty's
All
worse than
those
Sparoh is.
The wolf pack. The mortgage went to the wolf pack.
Yes. All the pretty mounts.
Sparoh's like, but I look good. Cryptfox, cash shop, monetization.
Yeah, so echo everything everybody else said, but also, like, I couldn't even really like figure a score for this at first, but it's just like the more that I think about it, the more I just want to give it like a C minus. Um, because they're doing things backwards, right? The quest, they don't reward anything. All the rewards are in the cash shop. The loot system is unrewarding. Why? Because all the rewards are in the cash shop. My note here is it's good, but it's bad. But it's good, but it's bad. Just because like there's so many things in there that love. I love the skins, I love the mounts, I want the pets. I want all of it, right? And that's why it's good and bad. Um and like I'm glad Desryn articulated it, but just put all these items in the game and you know make it worth people paying a sub. There's nothing wrong with that model.
Yep.
And that's all I had to say. I don't have a score on my sheet, but I'll give it a C minus right now.
Cryptfox is changing his grade as we speak. Stands in fire.
So yeah, there's been a lot of points touched on that kind of echo my takes. So a few things to note. One, there are I really wish they did a better job of differentiating between, oh, this cool looking thing came from the cash shop versus this cool looking thing you earned in the game by being an utter badass. There are skins and titles and things that are earnable because you went into a veteran trial and achieved certain objectives in that trial. You went into one of the hardest dungeons and you've done it on veteran speedrun hard mode, no death. And so, or you've done Cloud Rest Veteran +3, so you've got the cool shiny silver skin. If you know where those things come from, it makes a difference. And I don't like that so many other really cool looking things that are in the same family can just be bought with crowns. Flip side of that is that the game makes, unless you really want to go hog wild in the cash shop, the game incentivizes you subbing as opposed to buying currency. A sub actually gives you more points per month than your sub's dollar value. You can spend $15 in general and get 1,500 crowns, or you can spend your monthly sub price and get 1,650 crowns. Your monthly sub also gives you the endless craft bag. It gives you unlocked all of the DLC content in the zones. It gives you more storage space. They highly incentivize sub to the game as your core spending model, which I have to give them credit for but minor credit. They're the least crappy in the value of the sub of a lot of MMOs. Now, to the point of cosmetics, like, hey, this armor comes from the cash shop. A point to bring up is that, especially during events, a lot of those armor styles are dropped in the world as style pages and crafting pages. So you could get those and either learn to craft them for yourself, learn to use them in outfits, or have somebody craft you gear who's learned that style, never touching the craft shop. Most of those, but not all, are earnable in-game, typically just limited times. However, the game has loot boxes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The game has
Ugh.
yes, the game has gamble boxes. The game has login rewards, which are just there to funnel you to the cash shop.
Wait, are we saying that ESO is the Las Vegas of MMOs?
No. Ultimately, it has a lot of things that I really hate in the cash shop. But on the flip side, I have seen over the years what they have used the cash shop to pour back into development of the game itself and make it successful. So I have to even that out with a C, even though I loathe the fact that it has buyable loot boxes.
I hate that you had to bring that up because it is so true. They have used their financial success to make the game better, and I can't not point that out.
It's modern monetization used to make the game better over time, and it kills me that it is a semi-successful example of what you can do with that influx of money.
Now, I
But
do
to
want to
your-
say,
Go
real
ahead, Nate.
quick, like because you were mentioning the value for the sub, which I agree with you, and you made me realize how they could add even more value very easily. What if they included each year's new edition of Skyrim with the sub price? I think that would really up the
Everybody
value.
owns it already. No one wants. Everyone already owns it.
Is that
There's
on the
all-
most current platform that it's being placed on?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there you
Like
go.
this year
Yeah,
we did
yeah,
a
yeah.
Switch.
There's
and
also
last year
there's
was-
also the break there because this is ZeniMax Online Studios, not Bethesda Game Studios. So it is same ownership company, different development company. So that would be some legal weirdness.
And to Stanza's point about being able to earn cool things in game, just as an example, when we went to one of my housing places, I have different busts and different trophies from doing veteran dungeons and different events and things all on the wall. And it struck up the conversation. Oh, those are so cool. Where'd you get those? So there are definitely cool things to be had in game. It isn't just the cash shop. It's just you have no real way of knowing, is it cash shop? Is it earned?
Right.
Kind of thing.
But part of the draw,
But it's there.
part of the draw of the cash shop is that you have no way of knowing if you got it in the game or not. Right. That's the people when you buy stuff from the cash shop. What you want is the earned respect that comes from getting it in the game. Right. That's a draw for a lot of people. Is like it's instant credibility. Right. That's what they want.
So we just need that scarlet letter A.
Yes.
For
But then nobody would buy it.
That's right.
Right.
It'll never happen.
Then
They
nobody
have
would
the
buy it.
watermark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the watermark. Your whole screen just has a watermark right in the middle.
Or just your graphic on your armor.
Shame.
Cash shop.
What was your grade, Stance?
That was a C.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah.
Tetsu.
Not the worst, but still hate it.
So for me, I was actually surprised how I didn't mind the cash shop at all. And I was like sitting here. I remember that was a quick, oh yeah, no problem, high grade for this one. And now I'm thinking about like, why did I give it such a high grade? Because I hate cash shops. I hate them so much. But like, why was I okay with it? I realized why this is as we were talking, because there's two big reasons why I would buy something, right? It's progression and aesthetics. so progression wise, my bag was full of gear, and Sans gave me some gear, but like I felt no need to like buy any gear. Like I'm perfectly fine. I can keep swiping my finger past 1 through 5 and rolling till whenever. So I have no incentive to buy anything. And then second was the bigger one for me. And I've had this conversation with my younger brother and some other people where um I say I don't like playing a game because people buy all this cool looking stuff, and I don't want to pay money for it, so it's not fair for them to to have this cool looking gear and like, but you could still play and have fun on your own without looking at other people. And that actually I experienced that for the first time because for me MMOs, the game itself is looking good. Like that's a big part of the game. They're winning. They're buying to win in aesthetics because that is a big part of MMOs for me. I'm the person who will wear the crappy sword if it looks better than the meta sword with the better stats. I don't care. I want to look good. So in this case, my best analogy is you walked me into a sneaker store and the salesmen are popping up with Jordans and Yeezys in my face, and I'm like, I don't care about sneakers. I'm wearing Payless shoes. So you don't affect me, salesman. So what's the point? I'm not gonna buy anything in the store, and I don't feel bad because I don't even like sneakers. So in this game, the same way is like I walk into this game like, hey, buy all this cool stuff. I'm like, it's not really cool anyways. I don't like how any of this looks, so I have no need to buy it. So I never even noticed it, which is a weird take for me. So I give this I gave it a B. It wasn't an A just because it exists, and I hate the idea of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tetsu the Charisma Suave. He must look good in his
Good.
MMOs.
I like that sneaker analogy too.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I don't have anything original for this. It has a cat shop. It didn't bother me. The most polished turd analogy pretty much sums it up for me. Right? It's not lotro. It's not like in your face. It's not like cramming it down your throat.
It's not like that anymore.
It's just there, so it's fine. I gave it a C.
And I want to say this too about cash shops, because for ESO, it really was like pretty much all of us said. It was like you've got this cake, that's your MMO, it looks delicious. You're gonna want to eat it real bad, and then somebody poops on it, right? And like ESO just dropped a couple of rabbit turds on it, but it's just kind of like
Brush them off.
we can
Cut
eat
around
around the poop, right? But I would rather there just not be poop in the cake at all.
Oh no!
Oh,
Oh, that's terrible. I'm never playing ESO again.
I'm never eating cake again.
I'm never
that's
I'm
blasphemy.
never eating cake
Gotta
at
have
Nathan's
cake.
house ever.
For Nathan's birthday, we're going to send him a cake, an ESO cake.
See how
With
just
turds
how
on
far
it.
Nathan will go. You started to point out something though, Nathan, that may as well, since we're in this, is that ESO is actually one of the only examples I can think of where the cash shop has gotten less sucky over time. I mean, how many MMOs have we been through that we get to watch over the span of the game's life cycle? It just gets worse and worse and more egregious, and especially since the Microsoft buyout, they've actually made it better. I mean, still polished turd. I 100% agree, but I have to give at least a tiny bit of praise for a cash shop getting better over time.
All right, lore and immersion. Nathan Napalm.
Yeah, so this is actually why I play this game off and on and casually, and why I've logged on for years, usually on my PS4, because like ESO's a big palate cleanser for me, because I can play it like a single player game. I mean, I can play, or if I'm in the mood for an MMO, I can play it that way, So and plus it being on console, was just like I've been streaming all day, or I've been doing this, or I've been at work all day. Lay out like a lazy piece of crap with some, Doritos on my chest, in my underwear in the living room on the big screen, and play ESO and get immersed and enjoy the lore and the story. And I feel like this. I think it would be hard to argue with this, actually. This Elder Scrolls entry has made all the other Elder Scrolls games better, because there's so many things you can learn in this one then you go back and play Oblivion, Morrowind, or Skyrim, and you're gonna be like, oh, how cool! I've met that guy that is talking about this book, or I've seen that, or I learned, or I read another book in ESO about it, or it connects things so cool, and there's just so much lore, man. It is actually insane, man. How much? I would say it probably has more lore than any other MMO to release to date, hands down. Actually, like defeats it with just mightily towers above the competition in lore. And because of that, I can get really immersed because I love the Elder Scrolls lore. I think it's one of the better ones. Super obviously ripping off D&D, but in a really good way. So out of video games, I feel like Elder Scrolls series is kind of top notch lore overall, and I love it. And so I don't remember what I gave it, but it must be good. Hang on. Yes, I give it an A minus. The only reason I give it a minus is because small complaint here, but I do lose my immersion when it's always like, oh, you've opened this temple that no one has been in 700 years.
And there's like, stealing my thunder. I'm gonna go.
I'm having so much fun, and I go in. There's like 100 people in there. Like that's the only time my immersion's broken. I love the game. Besides that.
Oh, okay. I'll just go. Yeah, that triggered me because that's exactly what I wanted to say, Nathan. At the end there, everything in Elder Scrolls is epic. It's like when everything's epic, nothing's epic a little bit. Like I kind of get that feeling with this game a lot. I don't know if I feel like this is a better Elder Scrolls lore game than Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind. I feel the opposite of that, actually, Nathan. I feel like it's a little bit worse, just because it's trying to put everything into an MMO shoe or an MMO mold, where I think just this type of lore fits better in a single player game than it does in an MMO. And because of that, it suffers a little bit. So from a lore and immersion standpoint, I wasn't as into it as I was in playing Skyrim. Skyrim, I was way more into what was going on in the world and all the details. You could say a lot about the lore in this game. It's got so much other material to draw from, and it's got such a strong lineage of games behind it that I think it really leans into those, and I appreciate that it does that. I like that it does that. In game, like all the books are cool, but honestly, in those dungeons, like some of the really lengthy books, like is anybody actually reading those books in the dungeon, like when they're with a group in the dungeon? No,
in a group, no way.
I mean, if nobody's not reading them, who's actually reading them? Seriously,
literally, I could read the notes, but not much beyond that. So it kind of pulls you out when you're like, I just can't imagine a scenario when anybody's actually reading this. So it's kind of like, well, is it really there to be read? No, it's just there for show. I like the way that the ESO does the races differently. I think that's cool. I think that's a good lore aspect of it. I'll keep it brief and just leave it there. But overall, I gave it an A. It's an Elder Scrolls game. It's lore heavy, and I love it. So.
Now, in Therek's defense, because I know people who's played a lot of ESO are hearing what he's saying, they're like, what are you talking about? He did not play the storyline single-player style of ESO, which is what everybody else is probably thinking of that's played it. So to him, his point of view makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. That's a good clarification. Thank you.
Desryn.
Okay. I love Elder Scrolls lore so much, actually. It's so weird and somehow nostalgic, even though I didn't get into Elder Scrolls until Oblivion. I love the time frame that they did this for an MMO. I feel like they couldn't have done it after the events of what we know of. So as Nathan pointed out, you get all this context for just stuff that comes later, and they really have dug in to use Elder Scrolls Online as like, it's almost like the base Elder Scrolls universe now, and that the other games are actually referencing it, or that's what it makes it feel like, because it's just so vast. I mean, there's just so much there. Now, I gave it a B+, actually, because it has a few drawbacks for me. And one of them is it's an MMO, as Therek kind of alluded to. It makes it feel a little bit different. Now, what actually killed me on the lore and immersion is the speed. How fast you run around in the world, and how the scale of the world is in comparison to your character. I've mentioned plenty of times that I like playing Skyrim with this mod pack called Wildlander, and it's all about immersion. And one of the things is the scale of the world in Skyrim versus the scale of the world in ESO is so vastly different. And you may arrive at a place in the same amount of time, but in Wildlander or Skyrim, you're jogging at a normal pace that you would expect. In ESO, you're going like 70 miles an hour, and you're still just getting there at the same time, but it makes the world feel plastic somehow to me, and not real. It makes me not want to go into first person. It makes me want to pull back and watch from afar. And while the lore is excellent, the immersion struggles because I don't feel connected to my character in this game, like I have in many other games. And it's a matter of camera, it's a matter of speed, and a lot of gameplay related things that might take away from immersion. So that's why it only gets a B+ from me. But overall, still really good.
Good points. Heck yeah.
Sparoh.
A lot of good points. If I had heard before I did my grade, I might have pulled back a little bit, but I'm just gonna go with what I had. And I'm with Nathan. This is why I play the game. It goes hand in hand with the questing for me. It's just got great stories, in my opinion. You can just wander, get lost in the world, enjoy yourself, stumble upon, little camps and things with story and quest givers. And the lore is more than you'll ever be able to read or get into. It's definitely a world that's living, breathing around you. So it's my favorite part of the game. It gets the AAA+ here as well as it did with the questing, because for me, that's how I play this game, is more like an RPG than an MMO. So if I was thinking of it as the MMO, I probably would have pulled that grade back more, but just how I play it, I'm giving it the high grade.
Nice. Cryptfox.
Well, since I see the time, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Kind of want to echo everything everybody else has said, but on immersion, I'm a freaking vampire lord necromancer. That is me. I gave it an A. I love it. I love being able to be the character that I want to play.
Nice. Stans.
Yeah, lots of echoing what's come before. For me, the key points are it is more Elder Scrolls. Plain and simple. It is a lot more Elder Scrolls, way more than Bethesda has the capacity to churn out. And I don't have to have Bethesda's wooden, terribly written NPCs. ZOS actually writes some really good NPCs that you can interact with. I gave this an A.
Tetsu.
As probably the one person who's never played Elder Scrolls in this group, I'm going to say that it actually seems to be like a love letter to the Elder Scrolls series from the little bit that I know about it. So I'm just gonna keep it at that. I don't know much about the series or really anything at all, other than Morrowind came out on the Xbox, and a bunch of me and my Wii friends told the nerd to get out of here with his nerd game. But other than that, I think it's a love letter to the Elder Scrolls series, and I think any fan of that series would like it. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a B. It's good.
So, I'm probably going to hear about this forever. But I don't really like single player RPGs. Like, I don't play them. I don't play
sure.
I don't play Elder Scrolls. I don't play Elden Ring. I just don't. I don't enjoy that. And so
Wait a minute, did you actually play Elden Ring before you say you don't enjoy that?
No, I didn't play Elden Ring.
Okay, all right.
But
all
I
right,
did
continue.
play Dark Souls though. the first one all the way through.
It's not the same. Not the
No, it's not.
Mhm.
I knew
It's
I knew
not.
that I wasn't going to enjoy Elden Ring.
same. You probably wouldn't if you don't like single player.
I would not either.
I just don't like single player RPGs. The catch for me for MMOs is multiplayer. And so for me, as I'm going for lore and immersion, it's always about the why, right? I feel like I'm that guy from the Matrix. Is it the Merovingian? Is that how you say it? I can't think of the name. The guy in the second Matrix movie. Anyway, it's always about the why. Why am I doing this? Why? Like what is the end of this? And I just feel like Elder Scrolls never gave me the why. Like there was I said payoff early, but there was never any payoff. There was never any at the end of the tunnel like, okay, so I learned all this stuff about the lore and then that helped me defeat the boss. No, it was just I learned the stuff about the lore and then I just killed the boss. The lore had nothing to do with anything that happened or any decisions that I made or any, like there were never any choices where knowing the lore made it better for me, or like there was never any interaction between the story and what I was doing in the game. And so for me, like I just don't like single player RPGs. I don't like being told a story that way. If I'm going to do that, I'm just going to read a book. So for me, I need a reason for the lore and the immersion to do something for me. So for me, it's a C.
Yeah, I agree with Asira. What about all the werewolf part and the choices you had to make? I
Yeah,
thought that was interesting.
But it didn't matter. We got to the same exact ending.
No, it does matter because later on that guy will either be dead or alive.
He'll be
when
dead
you
or
come
alive,
back.
yeah.
You know, like you only saw the surface level one quest, but all these things come
But
back into play.
that's the thing, though, is that's the experience that Draq has to
Sure.
judge the game
Right.
on, is what
But
the 101
But
went
was
down.
was there a different piece of gear at the end of that? Do I get something different because I chose that direction?
See, that's not how lore works.
No.
Not in any game that we've played so far, but it could be. It could be.
I'm just saying.
Pantheon.
It doesn't-
Lore and loot.
that-
Put them together, baby.
It doesn't.
It's
to me,
totally
it does,
valid for what you guys took Draq through, and
Yeah.
and the stuff we know Draq focuses on, like
You
that.
Gear.
You see, you just gotta tell Draq, there's treasure in
There's
books.
I need
There's
some gold.
treasure in books.
needed some
Yeah,
gold.
this is the knowledge. You get knowledge.
This would be like if a guy brought eggs to Draq and told him the whole story of like the dragon they came from, and he's like, "Okay, bro, okay, how much are they worth?" Like, you know, like I don't.
I would
need to know all
totally be
this.
more interested about it if I could sell it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I can't help but point out, though, that one thing that it almost sounds like Draq is asking for, maybe not, but getting close to, is that like reading a book in, on the floor in a dungeon actually gives you a legitimate way to defeat the boss that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And
Right.
that, I think, is an MMO problem.
Right.
Good
Every single MMO developer that I know of is afraid to do something like that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just don't enjoy requiring
Required reading.
Yes,
Required
it's just
reading.
how it is.
Right.
And
Somebody's going to read it. It's
echo-
going to go on a wiki, and it's done.
But that's
That-
fine.
It's one of the reasons why investigation quests were phased out of the secret world.
Right.
Because great concept, learning stuff to progress game or unlock something, all it did was entries in a wiki.
Yeah, it's just an unfortunate reality, but I do echo Draq in saying, like, I wish they would do it anyway, honestly.
I wish they would
just
do
for
it
the
anyway.
sake of, if you decided I don't want to use outside sources, I want to puzzle solve myself. I wish it was.
I'm not going to puzzle solve. Let's get that clear.
Right.
Well, you
But I want the
ask
option.
someone else.
I want the option. I think for me, it makes all the difference in the world because I think it would be cool if that was there, and it would mean a lot to me, and it would make me more interested in the game because I could have Therek with me, and he could solve the puzzle, and then I would be
Exactly.
amazed by that. I would literally be amazed, and then that would cement a relationship with me to the game because I was with Therek while he solved the puzzle because he read the lore.
Well said.
So, All right, this is going to be the fastest section of the night.
A lightning round, if you
The
will.
lightning
All
round
right.
of rounds. Fun, addictability. Nathan, go.
It's addictive. I think it's addictive to me just because there's so many different ways to play. It's the kind of game where you want a PvP, it's got several avenues for that. You want a PvE, several avenues. You want to run dungeons, you can do that. You want to, I mean, name a thing that MMOs do, and you can do that if you want to in ESO. So I think it's addictive because of that. Obviously, I've played it for many years. I've always on my channel talked good about this. Is a pretty good. I've never said it's the best. I would never main it. But just as a side MMO, it's one of the better ones just to just have a good time in. So I give it a B+.
B+. Therek.
It doesn't do the things that addict me to games. It doesn't do the things that want me to make me want to keep logging in on a daily basis. So it doesn't have that. It doesn't have it going for it. It's fun, but it's not addictive. I gave it a D.
Desryn.
All right. I did not give it a super low grade, but I was tempted because just like Therek, it actually doesn't do a lot of the things that addict me naturally. I felt everything that addicts me to Elder Scrolls Online, and this is why I quit last time, is manufactured, and I hate that feeling so much. Even if it's good gameplay, I feel targeted by a lot of the systems in Elder Scrolls Online, and I don't want to keep logging in because of that. I gave it a B- just because if you're not thinking about that or overthinking about that like me, it's probably going to be pretty fun and keep you coming back.
Sparoh.
Yeah, pretty much what they said. Not enough group content as well for me for an MMO to be addictive and fun. So I get bored with it because I play it more as an RPG. So that's what keeps me coming back. I wouldn't say it's addictive per se. I don't play it for long stretches of time, but it keeps me coming back as something that I like to do to relax and enjoy the world and all the pretty things. So it's something I enjoy in bursts. So I gave it a B.
Cryptfox.
I don't like the loot system or the incentivization towards the cash shop. I want to feel the reward from the game. I don't get that from playing the game other than like listening to some cool stories and playing through some cool action. And maybe if Nathan wants to do some PvP, we'll do some PvP. Uh, but yeah, I gave it a C. And I don't know if you want like overall score, but
Oh, we're
at
going to
least
hit that
one.
next.
Yeah, so at least addictability and fun, I'm giving it a C.
Stans.
Yeah, sheer variety of stuff to do in the game. I can work on crafting, I can run open world story content, I can do exploration, just, set a landmark and go see what's there if it's someplace I haven't been yet. I can run dungeons or trials, setting the difficulty and achievement hunting in them or not. I can log in to say, okay, cool, I've got someplace I don't have the trifecta of speedrun hard mode, no death on. Cool, that's what I'm going for. I can do PvP. I can play the in-game monetary system and try and make more gold, or I can just do map completion. But the variety of stuff to do to stave off going through, I'm logging in and doing the same thing every time, I give it a B.
Our good friend Zerg Jerk put in chat, no spears F.
Good point. Never thought of that. Never thought of that till he said that.
He's a big advocate of the spears.
But but you can get a magical spear, for sure.
Templars have
What
at
I
least
just
two different
mentioned.
spear abilities. They have jabs and they've got javelin.
I think that's why he said no real spears.
Real spear-
I think,
real
I think
spears,
that's why he
yeah.
said that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In
Tetsu.
the cash shop.
Fun, addictability, Tetsu.
Things that make me addicted to the game: wanting to look cool, wanting to gain a certain piece of armor that'll make me stronger, enjoying the combat, and being challenged. This game had none of those. Now the challenge caveat, I understand Endgame is probably going to be more challenging, so that one's kind of But other than that, I wrote nothing to grab onto or aim for. Maybe the lore, if I was more connected to the world or the series. But since I'm not, I personally just didn't have any real reason to play the game. There's just every other game I can just play and enjoy it more and just have better versions of this. So I gave it. I did have fun with PvP, with everyone just being silly. So because of that, I gave it a D.
Nice. Oh, I can't stand the loot. It drives me crazy. And I get and I can't stand the challenge of it. And I get that it gets harder as you go up, but I really dislike games that like make me go through the treadmill of like doing dumb leveling and then are like, okay, now here's hard mode. That's awful and icky and slimy, and I just really dislike it, and it makes me angry. So I gave it a D minus. It would have got the triple F, except for the fact that I really enjoyed PvP. That was a lot of fun. So
Wow, PvP saved
Yeah.
the day.
I know,
Wow.
I know.
Who would have thought?
You're
That
never
is
gonna
very
hear that
Twist.
again from me again.
It's a
This
twist.
is
Yeah.
it's an
I'm
alternate.
proud of you, Draq.
Alternate universe tonight. So
Yeah.
This is what happens when you combine the 101 and 201. This kind of crazy outcome.
That's
That's
true.
100%. All right. So overall grade for the game. The overall grade isn't necessarily an average of your grades. It's just your overall thought of everything together, what you thought of the game, your grade. Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, I think Elder Scrolls has its place. I think that for people that don't like it, it's because you're coming into it as this is an MMO. I think if you come at it as this is a Elder Scrolls game that also has some MMO feature, has all the MMO features, but it's an Elder Scrolls game first and foremost. And I think they had to go at it that way because of the success of Skyrim. I don't think they had a choice because honestly, game's a lot different now than it was when it launched because people were pissed, freaking out, calling it the worst game ever. It wasn't, but people were acting that way. So this is not the same game it launched as. It was very more MMO first, Elder Scrolls second at launch. Now it's the other way. Since I'm aware of that, I've been following it since the beginning, played it in the background for a long time. I get it, and I'm able to play the game from that perspective and enjoy it for what it is. So I give it a B.
Therek.
Yeah, for me overall, the thing is that I love the aesthetic of this game. I love the tone, and I love it's the only real major MMO right now that looks and feels the way I want it to from a aesthetic standpoint. It doesn't. There's single player games that are better. It tries to be a single player game, and I can name 10 single player game RPGs right now that do it better and are I would enjoy playing more. So it falls down trying to be something that it can't be. It can't compete with a single player RPG because there's so much less that they have to worry about when making a single player RPG, and it just can't compete. So overall, I gave it. What did I give it? I gave it a C overall. So it's very middle of the road. I wish it was more than it is because I really like it.
All right. Well, when someone asked me, what my top picks of modern MMOs that are like still going strong are, ESO is my number one go-to. I have no illusion that it's perfect, and I obviously have problems with various parts of it for sure. But as far as a game that doesn't seem like it's just reaching into the pockets of its players constantly, it at least has some illusion that money isn't so intertwined with the game constantly, that the developers actually care about their IP. I mean, that's what maybe Lord of the Rings is the only other comparable one I can think of on the market for that. There are a lot of benefits, and I have to give it a B, even though it's my favorite to recommend to people because we don't have an A yet, and that's the only reason.
Sparoh.
So for lore immersion, questing, all those things, it got some triple A's. Here, it doesn't get the A because it has one aspect that I wasn't sure where to put it in. It's my most hated thing in all MMOs, and that is the localized auction house. Everybody in this panel has heard me talk about how much I loathe that. It ruins the game for me. I don't sell or buy anything on the auction house. It affects the grade for me just because it does affect how I play, the things I go for, gear I might get, things like that. So I'm gonna give it a B+.
But is there a reason to ever use the auction house?
Nope, not really. It's crap.
Yeah.
I use it.
Oh,
it,
yeah.
but like,
Yeah,
I see
there
you,
is.
Sans. I see
Not for
you.
me. Not for
you
me.
can avoid. You can avoid it though. I mean, you.
Oh yeah,
can.
like the plague.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere looking for it.
Cryptfox.
I mean, like this guy, he wants like 10 platinum for this.
Oh, I forgot to change that.
Oh, I need to get that new horse out the cash shop. No, but yeah, I don't know. I gave the game a C plus overall. I don't know. Like I'm really harping on the loot system and everything because all of the things related to the cash shop to affecting how loot is handled in the game seeps in and causes the players to act a certain way because there's no value in the loot that drops. People want to do things faster and faster so that they have a better chance of playing the numbers and getting the good loot. So yeah, it just sucks. I really fell in love with the game, from the story aspect and everything, but it's the roots are corrupted and it's seeping through. It's really bad when it comes to the loot.
Fans.
I mean, overall, I gave it a B+. There's enough here that keeps me coming back. Love the game, love the world, love being able to dive into challenging content when I want, or just wander the world when I want.
Tetsu.
Okay, I ended up giving it a D+, simply because if C is the average MMO with all the modern tropes and trappings that we come to expect and hate or love, however you want to put it, ESO is that. Quest hubs, solo centric, don't really need anyone, which is not an ESO thing. That's just a modern MMO thing. So that's gonna bring it to C, and then I drop it down to D because I hate the combat, and combat is most of what you're doing in the game. So if you hate the combat, you're not gonna have a very good time. And then the aesthetics, that I can kind of get over. Like Pantheon, it's a Western style aesthetic game. I will get over that because I have realized now I'm gonna be playing like a Western styled game. But if everything else is great, I can get over that. I can overlook it really. But the point is that yeah, if C is a standard modern MMO, drop it down to D because of the combat and the aesthetics.
For me, for my overall grade, when it's in this level of territory where it's kind of in the middle of the pack, I always think about, well, what did I give other grades? And I'm pretty sure I gave New World like a C. And so I think it's a little bit better than New World. So I give ESO a C plus because I think it's I like New World combat better, but there's things in ESO that I think were way better than what New World did, and I like the graphics way better than New World, even though New World's a higher fidelity game. So yeah, I've already said all the things I don't like, so we don't have to rehash that. But yeah, I just think it's middle of the road. It's not my cup of tea, but that's fine. Not every MMO is. So that brings us to the end of the grading and the end of ESO. Huzzah! So we have a few announcements. So next week we will be starting a new MMO, and we are actually going to start a new MMO. And if there is one thing that I love, it is starting with an MMO as it's new, as it's launched, as it's fresh. That is just like even bad MMOs as they launch are fun to play because nobody has any idea what's going on. It's the wild west, and it's just an exciting time. So we're going to be playing Fractured Online. A couple of us tested it out for the free weekend. We had a great time. So we're going to do that. And we are going to combine forces. Because there's no group there's no group limit for Fractured Online, so we can all hop on, we can all play together. So that's what we're gonna
There's no group limit. It's a Zerg.
It's a Zerg. So we're
It's
gonna
a raid.
So wait, we're raiding on day one?
we're raiding day one.
Nice.
So I'm not exactly sure how all that's going to play out. Not everybody's going to be able to be on camera. We'll switch on and off. But yeah, everybody can be in the Discord, and everybody is welcome to join us on Tuesday nights. Now, the 201 is having a great time. And so we are not going to discontinue that. So while Therek will join us on Tuesdays, I will let him explain what he's going to do then with the 201 on Thursdays.
Yeah, so we're going to keep streaming on Thursdays. So the 201 is going to be playing Guild Wars 2. Cover your ears, Nathan. But we are also expanding our group to include Sarah and Essen, who you may have seen in a recent video on our channel. A couple that are lots of fun and going to be playing with us. They really like Guild Wars 2. I like that game. And so it's going to be the 5 of us. We haven't decided exactly on the final 5, but we'll figure that out. So it's going to be the same time on Thursdays, 7 o'clock Eastern. Next Thursday, and I think there's some new content for Guild Wars 2 actually coming out this week. It might be next week. So we're going to be looking at that and trying to do some new stuff. And so yeah, we'll keep doing Thursday nights, just doing a different game. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back with you guys on Tuesday too, because I miss all you guys.
I thought you said you were gonna have a good time though.
Oh, damn.
We're doing it just trolling you, Nathan, is a good time. Are you kidding me? That's the whole point.
Guild Wars 2 is probably lucky that we didn't actually grade the game when we did it.
Yeah,
we just
right.
graded
We
our
just did the
classes.
Yeah.
Right.
I did. I cheated on that one. I just went off. I just went off on mine.
That video is infamous.
It's fantastic. All right. Well, this Thursday there is no 201. Just making sure.
Right.
This is the stream for this week. So on Thursday we have the Pantheon Dev stream, which will be followed immediately by Pantheon Plus You. That's myself, Nathan, and Therek, and the entire Pantheon community. All the really rabid fans, everybody that's like super into Pantheon. Is there. We talk with devs. Sometimes the devs come in the stream and talk to us in our Discord. So you want to make sure
cool.
You want to make sure you're there. You want to make sure that you get in on that. If you want like to get hyper into Pantheon and you're like, well, I'm a little bit lost. I don't really know what's going on. Dude, hit the P plus U. We'll bring you up to speed. That's where you get the inside information. So make sure you join us on Thursdays for that. Nathan, what else do you got going on this week?
We've got our regular streams. Me and Sparoh stream in the mornings every morning. WoW Classic, except for Tuesday mornings, which is already passed, where we do Vanguard in the morning. We'll be starting Saturday because there's Cringe Ponies off season. So Saturday I'll be starting up another new MMO for my channel. I'll be playing Dark Age of Camelot. And that's about it. Project behind the scenes right now with the free time I have from Cringe Pony not being on season is work on the new Choose Your Own Adventure, which this time has a main character, Therek, the Ranger.
Yes,
that's in the works right now.
Fun.
I've been working on it, so
Can't wait.
All right. Therek, do you have anything planned for this week?
Just to remind everybody, the Rewind will be back this weekend. We were off last weekend. We are back coming up on Sunday for, what is it, episode 118, I think. We're going to be reviewing the dev stream. We're going to be catching up on last week. And yeah, me and Desryn will be there. So hope to see you guys there.
I'm sure it'll be a very short episode where we are very concise and don't ramble on anything.
It's just going to be Desryn the whole episode talking. My script is minimal. It's all Desryn.
I've got 2 weeks to make up for.
Yeah, I know. He's been working on it this whole time, I have a feeling.
You know, Therek, you could just like record yourself saying, "Oh, yeah, oh, okay."
Yeah,
Desert,
track.
and then just put that on there and take the day off.
Yeah,
that's
not a bad idea.
Make sure you get your signature. I really like that one. I was telling Sparoh. Sometimes I say things agreeable just to hear him say it. Like,
I like puppies.
Good to know. I like it. That's valuable feedback. Thank you.
Desert, do you have anything Do you have anything to add, Desryn?
I don't have anything special except for I am cranking away at fun things in the background that someday everyone will know about.
Oh, beans are almost being spilled here. We'll rein it back in. Rein it back in. All right, Sparoh.
Yeah, I won't be streaming this Thursday night because of the dev stream. Gotta be there for that, and P plus U afterwards. Doing the morning thing with Nathan, and there is a super secret thing. I'm not allowed to say what it is, but me and some special people have been working hard, and it should be happening soon. So,
Oh, special people.
yeah, special people.
Special people. Cryptfox, what you got going on?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of split streams recently. I've been playing first about 2.5 hours of each stream with Temtem, which it's really freaking fun. Because never heard of it. It's like a Pokemon style MMO. Uh, but yeah, I've been doing that, and this Friday I'll be doing it again, starting at 7 p.m.
All right, perfect. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up here. I don't have anybody on the raid. I have nobody that's on right now. I can't believe no one's on. And we have already gone too long, so we gotta shut this thing down. So everybody have a great night. And we'll see everybody on Thursday after the Pantheon dev stream. Everybody wave bye-bye to the people.
Night all.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye to the people.
Bye.